Hello students. In the surface chemistry last class we studied about the two methods of preparation. You remember the chemical methods of preparation by double decomposition, oxidation, reduction and so on. And we studied about even peptidization also. Today in this class I will continue the third and the last method of preparation, that is the electrical disintegration method, also called Bredig-Zark method. It can be asked for a 2 marks in the exam. Explain preparation of metallic salts by Bredig-Zark method. So you have to draw a rough diagram and you have to explain what is done in the Bredig-Zark method. Okay. Now consider, here we will take a water which is actually a dispersion medium and it is kept in an ice bath. Okay. How you draw the diagram, same way you can explain what is happening there. And one more important thing you have to understand, this method is generally used for preparation of metallic salts. I told you in the last class, you remember, salts are the colloids in which solids are distributed in the liquid medium. So the continuous medium is a liquid in which the solid particles are present. Say for example, you want to prepare a gold salt or silver salt or platinum salt, such metallic salt you want to prepare, you have to take a same metal electrodes. Can you see here? This is the electrode, the anode and cathode, it is dipped here and it is connected with an arc. You will ask now Bredig's-Arc method, why that word comes? It is a scientist name and arc is an instrument used here which connects the two electrodes. Okay, the two electrodes are kept in the dispersion medium and just for the stability of the colloidal particles and for easy condensation, it is kept in ice bath. This is ice bath. Okay, now when a high voltage current is passed, what happens? There starts a decomposition of metal. The metal electrode starts disintegrating and the vapor form of the metal will condense to form the colloidal sized particle. So there is a decomposition as well as a condensation. Okay. At a higher temperature, the metal electrodes broken and it becomes a smaller particle and that vapor form of the metal will condense to form the colloidal sized particle. Okay. So what you have to explain for the 2 marks, you will draw the diagram and you will explain what is happening in the Bredig-Zark method. Okay. So a container filled with the dispersion medium, generally water, the metal electrodes are dipped, they are connected with an electrical arc and that is kept in ice bath. When current is passed, the sparks are produced, the vapor form of the metal condensed to form colloidal sized particle. Okay. So the limitation of this is generally it is used for the preparation of metallic salts such as gold salt, silver salt, etc. Okay. So that completes the methods of preparation of colloids. Are you clear? 3 methods we studied. The first one is chemical method, second one peptidization and third one is Bredig-Zark method or electrical disintegration method. Okay. Now, by any of these methods when you prepare the colloids, it may have the very small sized particle, that is a crystalloids or a true solution sized particle. It may have a larger particles also. Okay. So, after preparing the colloids, there comes a purification of colloids. As I told you, suppose if the larger particles present like of suspension size or precipitate size, we can use a filter paper. So that is a simple way, filtration to remove the larger sized particle. But if the very small sized particle, means the dissolved particles or a true solution sized particles are present, how to separate them? You have to remember 3 different methods of purification of colloids. Now what I am discussing, it is not the method of preparation. After preparing the colloid, how you can purify, how you can get a pure colloid. The first method is a dialysis. Second one is the electrodialysis. When you study first and second term, you will understand there are so many similarities, only the electrical field is a difference. Okay. And the third one is the ultrafiltration. First let me tell you about a dialysis. Okay. When you look at this word or when you hear this word, it comes in your mind, it is one of the method used in the hospitals for the kidney failure patients. Okay. So purification of blood is done by using artificial membranes during the dialysis. Same technique here also, we use some membrane which can allow the movement of very small sized particles, not the larger particles. Look at this diagram, you will understand something. Okay. So we take water here and inside a container we take the colloid which is having a dissolved particles. Okay. In this case you can see the red colored particles are the sol or the colloidal particles and the other small particles are the dissolved particles or we call it as crystalloids. Okay. And this container is lined inside with the membrane which allows only the movement of very small sized particles. Okay, that is a dissolved particle. As I told you, it is a true solution size or crystallized particles. Okay, now when you pass the water here, what happens? That small sized particles will diffuse out of the container and it comes to the stream of water, and which can be easily removed. Okay, so dialysis is a simple technique. I'll come back to the definition later, but try to understand what happens here. The very small sized particles or crystalloid sized particle or true solution sized particles that diffuses out of the container and it is washed away with water. Okay, within the container now the colloidal particles or only the salt particles will be left. Okay, after understanding this phenomenon of dialysis, can you guess what is the definition of dialysis? It is a process of separating which particle? The very small sized particles or crystalloid particles or dissolved particles from the salt particles or the colloidal particles using some membranes. We can't use a filter paper here. You know the size, pore size of filter paper is a little larger, where both these particles like crystalloid as well as the salt particles diffuses. So we use an artificial membrane which allows the movement of only dissolved particles. Okay, so if it is asked for 1 mark, what is dialysis, then you can write a simple definition. It is a process of separating dissolved particles, or you can use the word crystalloids, or you can say true solution sized particles from the colloidal particles using artificial membranes. Okay, so simple definition and the process of dialysis you understood. Okay, now moving on to the second process of purification, that is electrodialysis. Okay, I told you before, dialysis and electrodialysis are linked. Actually, this dialysis process is slow and we can make it fast by electrodialysis. The principle of working is the same. But suppose if the charged particles are present, just imagine the dissolved particles like Na plus is present or Cl minus is present, some ions present in this, then we can make the flow of the particles or a movement of the particles little bit faster by subjecting it to electric field. What we can do, in this diagram only I'll show you. Suppose if it is connected with the anode and cathode, maybe this is a one end of the electric field, suppose it is positive end, and this end I'll connect it to the negative end of the electric field. Now in the presence of this anode and cathode, those ions present as a dissolved particles will diffuse faster. Okay, so the advantage of electrodialysis over dialysis is process becomes faster. Why the process becomes faster, students? When the electrodes are present, these ions will migrate towards the positively charged electrodes faster. So electrodialysis is faster than dialysis. So no need to give a separate definition again. It is also process of separating the dissolved particles, but difference is in the presence of electric field. Okay, so the process becomes faster. Apart from that, dialysis and electrodialysis is one and the same. Okay, so no need to explain again with the one more diagram. I hope you understood. Only the electrodes are present extra compared to the dialysis in electrodialysis. Okay, so that completes the second method of purification. Now coming to the third one, the next method of preparation is ultrafiltration. Okay, I used the word filtration today. You remember, filtration is used to separate the very large sized particle, means suspension sized particle, from the other sized particles. But in ultrafiltration, we use some components called as a collodion. Okay, now you'll ask, what is this collodion? Now I told you the filter paper, if you take, it has got a larger pore size. Now we use one more substance, that is a collodion. What it will do is, it will decrease the pore size of the membrane. Any membrane what you use in the separation of the different sized particles, if collodion you use, it will accumulate around the pores of the membrane and it will decrease the pore size. Okay, when it decreases the pore size, what happens? Only the very small sized particle, means what I told you, the crystalloids or the dissolved particles will diffuse, whereas the colloidal sized particles or the salt particles will be left over there on the membrane. Okay, so one of the well-known example of a collodion is 4% solution of nitrocellulose in a mixture of ethanol and ether. It can be used on the membrane, which will reduce the pore size and used in the ultrafiltration. Okay, so ultrafiltration is also similar to that of filtration, but what we use is using some chemical substance we decrease the pore size of the membrane so that only the colloidal sized particles will be left over the membrane. All other very small sized particle, means the dissolved particles, diffuses through the membrane, making the pure colloid. Okay, so here till now we understood the different methods of preparation of colloids and purification of colloids. Okay, in the purification generally 1 mark questions may come. What is dialysis? Okay, or what is give an example for a collodion. That type of question comes, means you can easily answer. Okay, are you clear? So this is about the purification of colloids. Next we'll continue with the different properties of colloids. Okay, I hope you understood preparation and purification of colloids. Okay, after completing preparation and purification of colloids, now let me continue with the properties of colloids. We're discussing totally 6 properties here. The first one is a colligative property. Second one is one of the optical property, that is the Tyndall effect. Third one we'll study about the color. Fourth one, a mechanical property, Brownian moment. We'll discuss later about the charge on the particles and electrophoresis. Finally about precipitation. Okay, to begin with the first property, there is one of the optical properties. Okay, before that let me tell you about a colligative property. When you studied chapter solutions, you studied about the 4 colligative properties. Do you remember which all the 4 colligative properties you studied? You studied osmotic pressure, elevation in the boiling point, relative lowering of vapor pressure, and depression in the freezing point. Okay, in that chapter you understood it depends on the number of particles and not on the nature of the particles. Okay, so when I tell you about the colligative properties of a colloids, the question you may ask, the colligative properties of a colloid and colligative property of a true solution, if you compare, which may have a larger colligative effect. Okay, it may be about the change in boiling point, freezing point, or osmotic pressure, or the vapor pressure. Any of this if you compare, it is usually observed that the colligative properties of colloids is little lesser than that of the true solution. Okay, now we'll ask why it is less. Okay, I told you just now the colligative property depends on the number of particles. Okay, in case of true solution, the particles are independent, so the number of particles are more. But in most of the colloids, what happens? The particles are aggregated. The small particles aggregate or they accumulate, due to which the number of particles found is less. Okay, when the number of particles are less, I'm not comparing with the size of the particle. Remember, we are concentrating only on the number of particles. Since the particles aggregate in case of a colloid, the number of particles which usually involved in the reactions there is less. So that makes a less colligative property. We are not explaining with any of the colloid and what is the value of elevation in a boiling point or so. Just comparing with the true solution, colligative properties of the colloids are always less compared to that of true solution. If you remember that one sentence, sufficient. Are you clear? The colligative properties of the colloids are always less compared to that of a true solution due to association between the particles, or we can say there is a aggregation of the particles, and the number of particles which are independently present is quite less than the true solution. Okay, so that is easy. Theoretically you can understand about a colligative property. Now coming to one of the optical property, that is a Tyndall effect. I think this you studied, you heard before, okay, in the lower classes also. And a well-known example for a Tyndall effect, you can see the ray of light in the theater, in the movie theater we can say, which is focused on the screen. Due to the presence of dust particles, it gets scattered. Okay, now you'll ask why the light getting scattered. Okay, what is the reason? You can understand, if you pass a beam of light through a true solution, it will pass in the same direction. Okay, why? The particles are very, very small. When the particle size is very less, the ray of light passes in the same direction without any scattering. And we can't study such Tyndall effect in case of a suspension where the particles are larger. Maybe upper layer is very clear, transparent, and a lower layer where the accumulated particles will be completely blocking the ray of light. Okay. Now the speciality of a colloid, or especially when you say about the sol, the dispersed phase particles are distributed, okay, and they are larger in size compared to that of true solution. Okay, and the size of the particle is enough to not enough to block the ray of light, and they are not allowing the ray of light to pass in the same direction. Okay, now due to that intermediate size of the colloidal particles, it will scatter the ray of light. Okay, so you can observe when you study with the microscope the formation of a Tyndall cone, which is due to the particles present in the colloidal system. Okay, so try to understand the Tyndall effect observed only in case of colloids because of the intermediate size of the particles, especially of the dispersed phase. I told you before, dispersed phase and dispersion medium is present. The particles of the dispersion medium is very small. Okay, it is just like of a true solution size maybe. But the particles of the dispersed phase, which is having a size in the range of 1 to 1000 nanometer, they are responsible for the Tyndall effect. Okay, so remember here the scattering of light illuminates the path of the beam of light in the colloidal dispersion medium. So we can see the Tyndall cone, that is a Tyndall effect. Before we understand this Tyndall effect, you have to understand what are the conditions to observe the Tyndall effect. Okay, there are two important conditions to observe the Tyndall effect. The first one is the diameter of the dispersed particles is not much smaller than the wavelength of the light used. Okay, so if you say about there is a Tyndall cone, there is a scattering of light, it depends on the wavelength of the light used and also the diameter of the particles in the dispersed phase. Second thing, we know there are two components I told you just now, dispersed phase and dispersion medium. And if you can observe that Tyndall effect, the one more important condition that must be satisfied is the refractive indices. You studied in physics in detail in optics, I will not explain now. The refractive indices of the dispersed phase and dispersion medium, it should be having a much difference in their magnitude. Okay, the refractive indices values of the dispersed phase and dispersion medium, if it is much differ, then only we can observe the Tyndall effect. Okay, so I hope you understood. The Tyndall effect mainly arises because of the particle size and the ray of light is not passing in the same direction. There is a scattering observed and that depends on the wavelength of light and also the refractive index of dispersed phase and dispersion medium. Okay, the difference between them, that makes a very important role. Okay, so that's all about the Tyndall effect. You can understand. You can see the diagram, it is there in the NCERT book, but try to remember what is Tyndall effect and what is the cause for the Tyndall effect. Okay, yes. Now moving on to the next property of the colloids, okay, that is color. Now generally you say a gold yellow color, and gold sol may not have a yellow color. Okay, the concentrated gold, usually when you prepare a gold sol, it may be red in color. Okay, now the question comes, why the color changes there? Okay, now color of any colloid, it depends on the wavelength of the light. Try to understand. Okay, the wavelength of the light, what is focused on that decides the color, and in turn that wavelength of the light also decided by the size of the particle. Not only the size of the particle, nature of the particles also. Okay, so it is quite opposite to that of colligative property. You must remember this. Okay, so remember, color of a colloid depends on three factors. The first one, nature of the colloidal particle, that is especially dispersed phase particle. Second one, the size of the dispersed phase particles, and the third one is the wavelength of the light. Okay, so based on that, the different colloids will have a different colors. Again, you don't need to remember any such examples, but remember, color of the colloid or a colloidal mixture depends on these three factors: nature of the colloidal particles, size of the colloidal particles, and also wavelength of the light. Okay, so that is simple theoretical, you can remember. Now moving on to the next property, usually we say it is a mechanical property, Brownian moment. Okay, now when you look at this word Brownian, this phenomena was observed by Robert Brown. Okay, his name only kept for that phenomena. Okay, now the particle present in a colloidal system, I told you the particles will have an intermediate size. When you take a true solution, the particles are very small and they are moving very fast. In case of suspension or precipitate, particles will settle down, after that there is no moment. But in case of a colloidal system, we can observe there is a continuous motion in the zigzag pattern. Suppose if we consider there is a particle here, it will follow one direction of movement. After moving for a short distance, it may hit with the other particle and it may move in other direction. Okay, same particle may move in this direction. Okay, so it follows some zigzag pattern, and this zigzag movement of the colloidal particles is called a Brownian moment. Okay, so if you discuss in detail about a Brownian moment, there is a transfer of kinetic energy from one particle to other particle. All those things are there. But just remember what is Brownian moment. It is a zigzag pattern of movement of the colloidal particles in the dispersion medium. Okay, now the question comes here. This Brownian moment depends on what? Students, you have to think now. Is it depending on the nature of the colloidal particles? Is it depending on the nature of the colloidal particles? Absolutely no. It depends on size of the colloidal particles. Okay, we know the range. The 1 to 1000 nanometer size is a range of colloidal particles. But remember, Brownian moment is not generally depending on the nature of the colloidal particles. It depends on the size of the colloidal particles. Okay, so the zigzag pattern of the movement of the colloidal particles in the dispersion medium is called Brownian moment. Okay, so this phenomena can be observed even during the Tyndall effect also. The particles movement can be easily observed using high resolving power microscopes. Okay, because we know that colloidal particles are not easily visible, and if you use ultra microscopes, you can understand the pattern of the movement of the colloidal particles. Okay, that phenomenon is called as a Brownian moment. Okay, so this is about some of the properties of the colloidal particles. Okay, so in the next class we will continue with some more properties. As I told you, the charge on the colloidal particles we'll discuss. Based on the charge we'll discuss about electrophoresis, and based on the charge we discuss even about the phenomena of precipitation. Okay, so that 3 properties you have to continue, but till here you have to understand the 4 properties what I told you today. That is the first one, colligative property, second one, Tyndall effect, third one, color of the colloidal system, and the fourth one is Brownian moment. Okay, so we will continue in the next class with some more properties. Thank you.